What was a dude, just go home kinda moment when you witness someone trying to impress people? Welcome to the house of Reddit. Hope you enjoy this video. What was a dude, just go home kinda moment when you witness someone trying to impress people? Myself and a friend were at a pub. Just two girls having a drink and a laugh. There was a dude who was bothering us all night. He was pretty drunk and very annoying. We were polite to him at first and conversed, but he was getting very sexual with his comments, so my friend just told him to fuck off. He left us alone, but at closing time we were outside waiting for our cab and he started again. Only this time he was being an even bigger dick, calling us sluts and bitches etc. A big guy who was close walked over and told him to piss off and stop bothering us. The drunk guy then tried to punch the big guy but misses, then realizing he's about to get his ass beat runs across the road and gets hit by a car. Oh God. Friends of ours have a sailboat and a ton of sailing friends. Several years ago, their daughter's first communion rolls around and they have a massive bash. Now the thing about sailing people is they're friendly, and you cannot tell the guy with the 50-footer from the guy who scrapes the barnacles off. Especially when everyone is hanging out in a backyard with a bunch of beer and barbecue. New neighbor is there too. He does his because I'm a lawyer thing where he's all pompous. Talks to this nice older lady and treats her like dirt because he's a lawyer. He makes sure she knows that he is very important. Because he's a lawyer. 10 minutes later, he's doing his pompous lawyer thing with someone else, who says, "Oh, hey, I have a great contact for you to meet." Drags the asshole lawyer over and says, "Judy, meet, asshole. Asshole, this is Judy, Dean at Georgetown Law." It was, of course, the nice older lady. I was at a wedding on one of the islands far off the northwest coast of Scotland. We were at the reception in a hotel. It was around 9 p.m, things were going well, everyone was having fun. A bunch of residents came into the function suite, and most of them were fine. They kinda just disappeared into the mix, really. But this one lad. The happy couple were among the last in our friendship group to tie the knot. Consequently, almost all of the women there were married. This one lad decided he was going to have a crack at pulling each woman. He went around the room, in sequence. When he crashed and burned with one, he'd go on to the next. Usually, the next was in earshot of the previous conversation. He would use the same line on each lady: "Why have you come here, it's a total shithole?" Nobody gave him any grief, we were all in too good of a mood. And he was wrong, it wasn't a shithole, at least not for a visit. Perhaps a bit limiting to live there, but for a visit it was lovely. Had this happen once, at least the start. I was in a middle school with music program, so we were a small group, like a tiny class, who would regularly leave the actual school to go to the music school nearby as the program intended. It was on precise hours, so we would all go together. One of the guy, a guitarist, had a crush on a girl also playing guitar. We all knew, even her, but she wasn't into him, so she just tried to dodge the subject. Well, one day he takes out his guitar as we're all waiting in front of the music school, early morning, and it was opening after the actual school, so we had to wait a bit. He takes his guitar, turns to her, and as we're all ready to see a disaster, she just dashed close on him, puts her hand on the guitar to block all chords, and gave him the coldest no I've ever witnessed while looking him dead in the eye. I was in the smoking area of a busy bar with a friend of mine, and he started chatting up a girl. I was doing the usual small talk with her friend, you know, the small talk that has the subtext of, well, those two are probably gonna bang, how about this weather we've been having, huh? My drunk friend decided to do the condom trick to impress his newfound lady friend. The trick where you unroll a condom, snort it up your nose, and spit it out your mouth. Well, it went a bit wrong. The condom went up his nose all right, and some of it managed to drop down into his throat, but the base of it stayed lodged somewhere around his sinuses. Within seconds, theatrical snorting gave way to uncontrollable coughing, choking noises, and then projectile vomiting that sprayed out his mouth and his one unblocked nostril, covering the table, a large area of floor, and, of course, his newfound lady friend. Cleared the entire smoking room, got us both thrown out of the bar, and needless to say he did not get laid that night. 2 years ago at a 4-day camping music festival, it was 2 or 3 in the morning and our group had made our way back to our campsite, sitting around and chilling for a bit before those of us who were turning in did so. Occasionally the group picks up hangers-on in the forest, and for the most part they're cool people. This guy was being obnoxious, though, and I don't know who he was tagging along with. Perhaps that person had left again, and this guy felt he had found an audience. He was on an inflatable sofa between a couple of others, the rest of the circle made up with camping chairs. Some people are sitting, some are walking around or going in and out of tents preparing to head back out. He keeps asking people for topics to freestyle about. Gimme a word, man. Or a thing. I'll freestyle about it. I'm good but I gotta get better, and you guys can help me practice. He would just keep repeating that until someone humored him and give him a starting word. For the life of me, I can't remember a single one of the prompts he dragged out of us. But when he got one, it would always go the same way. He'd start improvising 4 or 5 syllable lines that included the initial word, then he'd get maybe 1 or 2 coherent lines after that which rhymed. Then he would just kind of fall into a mumble, not saying anything but keeping the rhythm he established. Occasionally words would bubble up out of the mumble mush, usually things that rhyme with his starting word. After he'd run dry on a word, which never took long, he'd immediately start pestering someone else for a topic. Even when it was hinted at that we were after a quieter, calmer atmosphere, he just went, "Yeah man, that's cool, I get it. Gimme a word, man. I can freestyle about anything." We eventually convinced him to go try to find his friends. But of the people who were around, no one was impressed, and everyone just wanted him to stop. A couple of mates and I traveled across America when we turned 21, and nearing the end of the drive we pulled into some college town, where my friend was 100% certain we were about to live a life of a college movie, drink, parties and pussy. He was wrong, but all night at every bar we went to he'd just get drunker and drunker, and he was going up to loads of people saying, "Hey, do you know where we can find a good time with a wink," without realizing that everyone thought he was looking for a prostitute. He was also just going up to groups of girls and shouting, "Hey ladies. We're British." It didn't work. He actually did that when I was chatting to 2 girls and they just looked him up and down and walked away. I nearly murdered him. It was at that point we all just went home. Well, to the hotel as with him in hand none of us had chance of getting laid. I was at a party in college and some dude started acting out some scene from The Dark Knight as the Joker in front of a bunch of confused girls. The movie had just come out a few months earlier, so it was pretty obvious what he was doing. Everyone in the immediate vicinity stopped talking and we all watched this dude awkwardly act out a one-sided scene as Heath Ledger's Joker, after which he started trying to talk to the girls while still in character. At one point he jumped up on a coffee table and one of the guys that apparently lived there, angrily yelled at him to stop and get off the table unless he wanted his ass beat. Clearly caught off guard, he finally breaks character, sheepishly says, "Oh, sorry," and awkwardly saunters off and sits down on a couch, trying to play it off like nothing happened. I wanted to eat a bullet. At an overnight camp out on private property with a loose-knit group who had worked around the state on some cause, made for good camaraderie among people many who just met in person for the first time. This one guy brought a bottle of strong booze that looked like it was repurposed from a gasoline additive bottle. It was one of those bottles with 2 caps and a graduated side bottle and tube molded together, so you could squeeze a measured amount from the main bottle into the smaller part and dispense it. In a fake Australian accent, he kept introducing the drink it contained to people as a snake boit. It was mildly interesting the first time you saw it, but after a while he was smash drunk from repeatedly demonstrating and offering it to people who all declined. It didn't help that this was his only line, he couldn't follow it up with commensurate banter or even normal conversation. Now he was openly starting the same spiel with people he'd already introduced it to several times. People started to leave or yell at the word snake boit but he didn't stop till he was ready to pass out in his tent. Next morning he was hungover AF and didn't participate in any of the group activities including breaking and cleaning camp. After he'd left I found the empty snake boit bottle discarded in a bush. On our last week of high school we had senior day where the school rents like 10 to 15 inflatable awesome things for kids to do and we just have a giant field day. Problem, on our senior day, the stuff didn't show up on time. So they crowded us all into the auditorium, gave us a microphone and essentially just let us all vamp for like an hour and a half. There were impressions of others, jokes, people sharing heartfelt memories, some people singing. So this one kid, who was a definite loner, runs to his car and brings back his speakers and a guitar. Hooks everything up and just starts playing, and playing pretty well. But he's a loner, so it's not really mainstream stuff and he's not singing or anything, just playing. It was great for like 3 minutes. A lot of us were impressed. "Hey, we learned something about Mikey, good for him," he wrapped up the first song, and went into the second and a third and a fourth. And didn't relinquish the stage for like 20 minutes. We were all mostly quiet and polite, gave the occasional cheer and clap. But we would clap after each song like, "Okay buddy, take your bow, you've earned your moment, let's go," but he just took every applause as "let's do it again," so he start right back up. It was the most awkward thing watching him and realizing that every single person in the room wanted him to stop but he just kept. When I was 19 I had a job at Kinko's, FedEx office for you whippersnappers, working with a guy named Tom who was 30 and doing the same kind of work I was at 19. Tom basically peaked in college and his life had been all downhill from there, and he was determined to make sure I didn't waste my college years on stupid crap like studying and that I've become the kind of party animal he was, you know, the kind that led to him working at Kinko's at 30. He was deeply disturbed then to learn that I did not like drinking, due to a very bad experience I'd had with vodka and Sprite when I was in high school. In Tom's insane brain though, he became convinced that I didn't understand how alcohol worked, and I literally mean he thought I did not understand that drinking alcohol led to a state of drunkenness, and that in a state of drunkenness one is then inspired to do stupid things. He told me with pride about a time he got wasted and climbed a modern art statue on the campus I attended, back when he was a student there, and so, on the night of the branch's Christmas party he became determined to show me how to drink, and as part of that, was going to come back to campus with me and climb that statue again while I watched so that I would learn that people do stupid things when they're drunk. I spent the entire damn evening with Tom sitting next to me as he made a big show of how he was drinking yet another pint of Guinness while lecturing to me about how this was going to get him drunk. And indeed when I left the party, Tom, after 4 pints of Guinness, followed me back to campus even though I kept telling him to fuck off and that I did not want to watch him climb the goddamn statue. He was insistent that it was important to my education to watch him climb the statue though, and just would not leave me alone. When I finally got to my dorm, which was nowhere near the statue, I ditched him at the door while he screamed at me that I was a loser and no one would ever want to be friends with me. The next day he showed up to work so hungover that the manager sent him home and wrote him up. As far as I know he never climbed the statue. I went out with a group of my brother's friends one time and one of our group was a smarmy, frosted tip and puka shells kind of douchebro. We were shown our seats at a Thai restaurant and a few of us are ordering wine. Douchebro is sitting across from me next to a girl and he's bragging about some bottle of wine he had recently. Tangentially, I discovered years later, wine is one of my hobbies now, that this winery he was bragging about is just kind of okay. This girl is totally falling for all his crap. She's very impressed with the $30 bottle of wine that this guy said he had one time. The server brings us our wine and he proceeds to put on this ridiculous performance with a $9 glass of cheap red wine, swirling it, holding it up to the light, sniffing it and then tasting it. He nodded, not sure if that meant the wine was good or bad, and then the girl asked him if he would taste hers and tell her what he thought. Surprisingly, he didn't do any of the swirling or sniffing with her wine. He just took a sip, set down the glass and put on his best thoughtful face. He then put his hand up, made magic fingers for a second and pinched the air with his thumb and 2 fingers. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. If you have any suggestions for future videos, please let us know in the comments below. Turn on the notifications to know when we post new videos. Thank you for coming to the House of Reddit.